Okay, the title of the video, hello everybody by the way, so I'm just going to say hello anyway because it seems impolite the way we all just start the videos and then hammer away our ideas at everyone. Worship the gods, but they don't worship us. That's the title, okay? Now, by gods, I mean, I say gods because I think that we all worship different gods, but also whatever god or gods rule or control or dominate this world that we live in, whether they be human or otherwise, and I'm not going to go into that in the video. Also, because, I can't prove it anyway. It is speculation at this stage for most people. Some people might believe that they know 100% what is or isn't the god or gods, etc. They might know that, but they still can't prove it. So I say it's speculation, even though I'm sure most people, if they actually are talking about a specific thing, they would probably believe that to be 100% correct. Just as most people who believe in the gods that they worship on this earth, like the different religions, they believe those gods to be true, even though they've never actually encountered them directly. Okay, but at any rate, we worship the gods, right? Or God, but the god would have many minions anyway, and many below it. Okay, so I'm going to say gods, but that could also be for dispute, in the sense that in recent times I have been led into information, and I say information because it's just information, that, there could be gods fighting even for supremacy of this world, shall we say, even. I'm not saying that it is true, but it's a possibility, okay? But either way, most humans would worship a particular god, and at the top levels of this world, I have no doubt that humans that are more in the know worship much more directly the true reigning God of this world. And I say reigning because, a God doesn't necessarily stay, because it is kind of like where they could go, or they could, things could change, because, most people's idea of God tends to be, oh, this is an all creator of everything, okay? Now, this could well be true, but I don't think it's true of this particular place that we live in. No, I think this is a small area that is controlled by a god or an entity that controls a region, but not everything. Not, like what you call everything. Not that we even know what everything really is, but we do know that there's more of what is. So it's limitless, really, out there in a way, or at least so much vaster than just our little realm that we know of. I'm saying that is probably controlled by a particular entity or god, okay? But even if that entity or god did not exist, we still have humans that worship it anyway. So, like if humans want to, like in the Bible, make idols and things and worship them, they can. Or they can worship anything they want. And so I'm saying that humans at the top, the most advanced humans, and the ones that have the most technology and the most power and they would worship a particular entity, God, Now that's, but at any rate, I'm trying to keep on track here because it does sound airy-fairy, and I'm sorry for that. But yeah, the gods, we worship the gods, right? But they don't worship us. But we create for them. As I've said before in the videos, these are the things that I say each video, because this is the basics of human beings, or what they're meant to be anyway, not what they are now, but what they're meant to be and what they should be, and kind of like the basics in a way of the what makes up the world, what it's really all is. Now, I'm no scientist. I say this honestly, so, if I sound silly, I don't blame you for thinking that, but I'm only picking up on the basics of things, because I don't think you have to complicate them or know everything. If you know the basics of something, that's all you need to know. If you know that that basic is true, or you believe it to be true, that's enough. And, like they sort of say that everything is frequency, vibration, and energy. Now you have to, because if this was new to me, I would say, and it is new to me, but it might be newer to you still if I'm just saying it now for the first time, even though it's a scientific thing, evidently, which, so frequency, vibration, and energy. They're things that we cannot see, right? Think about that. We can't see them. I can't see them. And I'm telling you about it now, but I do not understand it. I'm not a scientist. I'm just going on what science says. But I still know that I can't see it, but I have to believe in that fact. Okay? So everything is frequency, vibration, and energy. Human beings, I've said before, are spiritual beings. But that fits too if you want to put it that way, because frequency, vibration, and energy, you can't see it. And spiritual stuff you can't see. A spirit you can't see. We see the physical body. We're in the physical body. But you can't see the spirit. The spirit is in there, but you can't see it, okay? There again, forgive me if I sound as though I know what I'm talking about, because I don't fully, okay? And I'll be honest with you. I'm like everyone else, I'm searching, but these are the information I have, and some of it I base on what I know to be facts, okay? The rest, yes, you have to piece it together, but it's still, these basic facts are still almost science. So I think that it's okay to say it. Now, we're spiritual beings in a physical body. Now, that's hard for most people too, because I always thought, hey, yeah, like that saying, I'm a physical being having a spiritual thought or a spiritual existence, or making myself feel spiritual, like if I'm religious or something. I'm trying to explain it, but I'm not saying that was even me, because I actually was a physical being living in a physical body having a physical experience. Okay, that was my life. Okay, so I wasn't even one of your more advanced human beings, shall we say, that was in a physical body having being in a physical body, but actually thinking spiritually and having a spiritual experience. No, I was a physical person in a physical body having a physical existence and physical. I did not think much about spiritual stuff at all, and I did not believe in any realm beyond the physical. And so this is new for me. But as we're now finding out, even at a scientific level, and there again, I never delved into that because I'm not, I'm not educated, so, but, we're now told that, oh, the world is not probably what we think. It's not just this solid earth that we think is all physical and that's all there ever was. They are talking about, oh yeah, it's, yeah, that like that thing that I said, frequency, vibration, and energy. Frequency you can't see, vibration you can't see. Energy you can see, but that's only when it becomes solid, like the physical that here, evidently. You know what I'm saying? At any rate, so we're spiritual beings in the physical body. Our thought creates reality. Our thought creates reality. Our thinking, our emotions, our feelings combined with our thinking creates this physical reality. Yes, that's something that I would not have thought or believed. But, you know, this is the truth of what it is to be a human being. But it's not something that we have been aware of. It's not something that we've learned. It's not something we've even developed. And also, the third thing is we're all connected. We're connected to other human beings, just like the Wi-Fi and the stuff that we now use. That is not us, that is a technology. So, we are now living in two worlds. The world we're supposed to live in, or the world that is our natural state, shall we say, because to me that seems like common sense, that if we are spiritual beings in a physical body, our thought does create the reality, and we're all connected. So combined, we should be able to well, I don't know if we actually even need to create. This is just coming to be now 100% combined. But I would imagine that the combined is like sending the thought to another human being. Now, I've seen this in reality, but I've never put it down to this. This is why I now think this to be true, because I've seen my thoughts and other people's too materialize later, you know, in a physical form, despite the fact that I have not spoken to other people directly. So that, and not used any internet or anything like that either, I might add. Just a thought. Now, most people think their thoughts are their own. I'm saying that they aren't, that they can be transferred to other human beings. Now, I now realise also that because we are in a technological world now, instead of the natural world, that means that our thoughts are transmitted technically as well as that way. But I think that because we have the technology now, there could be many ways of looking at this. I'm not 100% sure on this right at this time, and I'll tell you that, but it's just a thought that occurs to me. If that was how we're naturally meant to operate, but of course we were never aware of it, you see. This is another thing, don't forget, we're not aware of this. And also, I'm going to get confused myself here. I know what I am trying to say, but there's a lot of issues to it, okay? So it does, to put it into one video makes it very hard for me, and I'm not real good at the actual talking and stuff. I really aren't. I'm very sorry for that. Also, I would like to say, just before I go on, that anything that I say about the human race applies to me as well. So if I say anything derogatory or anything that might seem negative, that also applies to me, because I'm a human being and I do the same things and do all the negative stuff too and think the same way. So if I'm presenting it, I'm not saying, hey, that I'm one of you enlightened human beings that's above it all. I'm just saying that, like a lot of people through your life, you see your mistakes and you can go back and say, well, that was a mistake, and you can hopefully learn, not so much even, well, learn by it hopefully, or at least acknowledge it to where you say, well, why did that happen? Why did I let that happen? So this is how I'm doing it now. I'm still operating in this logical world and this material way, even though I realize that, yeah, we are living in what you could call a holographic type universe or world. Now, science is already saying this. So that means that we are spiritual beings in a physical body. Our thought creates reality, and we're supposed to be all connected. But that doesn't mean we can't operate individually. But I would imagine that the connection would make for more harmony in the creation. But even that, I'm not sure of. It could well be, for all I know, that if we were at full potential, that it could be okay for, say, me, for instance, to create something separately and not actually have to combine with another human being for it. This is if human beings were at full potential. I believe we are at non-potential. We're at non-potential now, because we're now living in a technological world which does that for us. But I'm wondering if that isn't intercepting our thoughts and then transferring them technologically, which is interesting. Or maybe it's all technological and we're spiritual beings pushed into this technological world, but because we're not aware of it, therefore it controls us instead of us having some control over it. If you follow what I'm trying to say, because it's only coming to me too. You see what I'm trying to say is that, if we really are spiritual beings and our thought creates reality, we're creating, but we're not creating directly for ourselves, as I've said before. That's obvious, because we're not aware of it, and we don't have full control over it because we live in a technological world. So the technology would be influencing that and controlling it to a large extent. Now, also, this is complicated. It is for me anyway, because I've only just learned it. If the world is all frequency, vibration, and energy, that also means that I, as a being, as a human, if my frequency is low, like if I'm not high up in frequency, in other words, not happy, shall we say. At a low vibration means you are negative, you're depressed, or at the very best, I think most human beings are never at a high vibration, and I think this is the problem, because this is what I've said before. This is my realization, even though I'm also in this predicament. I think that if we were at a high, if all humans were at a high vibration, or at least much higher than what they are, because I think that most human beings, this is just what I observe and myself, we're never even at a remotely high vibration. We are all at the very best, we're not even neutral most of the time. By that I mean we're not even like to where we're like, not particularly angry or sad or unhappy or negative. We're sort of like more, well, not really happy either. But no, most of the time I think even though we're not aware of it, I think we're all very much in the lower vibration to where we are actually thinking negative. Because it's almost impossible in this world not to be negative, because it is a negative world. It has so many things that are always going wrong. There's always so much bad news. Even if you've got a good life yourself, you're still surrounded by negativity in the world in general. Most of us have it right at our doorstep. That's the thing. So it's, even knowing that, it's impossible to pull yourself up to a higher frame of thinking. This is only what very so-called enlightened ones can do. Dare I say that if you want to go fancy into religion and stuff, yes, the Jesus Christ-like type of things, to where, oh yeah, be in this world but not of this world. In other words, to where you can ignore if there's terrible stuff going on right around in front of your face. But most of us can't do that. In fact, I don't think there would be anyone that can really do it. I think you would have to be quite exceptional, and I'm not sure. And there again, maybe you have to get to a high vibration before you can get to that point too. I think while you're down here, you have to at least raise up a bit to even get, do you know what I'm trying to say? I think that once you're right down the bottom, you can't just get yourself up even to a decent level, much less to a high thing to where you could ignore. And if your circumstances are particularly negative, as it is for some of us, then even if you want to, and even if you try to close your eyes and ignore it, it just becomes impossible, because we are in a human body, and the physical side will attack us, not, and mentally too, but it's both really, it's a physical and a mental assault on the human, really, with the world around us, because that's just the existence that we live. But at any rate, I've gone off the track, I think, again. I'm so sorry. If we are frequency, vibration, and energy, if our vibration is low, because we are spiritual beings, I think that then we allow the negative thoughts to come in, okay? Now, this negative thought thing is more like, it is a real thing, but it is really essentially where, I'm just putting it simply, where a negative thought comes in and you entertain it. In other words, you don't dismiss it. Because once you get to a low vibration, I don't think that you can prevent the negative thoughts from coming in. I call them, and others have called them, mind parasites. And essentially they are where a thought comes in and it will feed off you. That's why I say a parasite, because it will infiltrate your thinking and bring you further down, and then you think negative, so therefore you are sending out the negative thought, which will get passed on to someone else. So that is like a parasite. It feeds off you and then will multiply. A bit like if you're in a room with a whole bunch of people and they're all crying and they're all negative, you're not going to feel very good, you see. So it's like that. And as our thoughts are transmitted invisibly, because everything is frequency, vibration, and energy, and our thoughts create reality, and we're all connected. These basics, if you just hold on to those basics, then everything flows from that. It's a bit like anything in this world. If you know the basics of what you are and what is, then you don't need to know much more. You don't have to be clever. You just have to, and this is where I think we've been kept in the dark, because the basics are simple, but if you don't know them, and we don't, and we've never known them, and then you can't really live a normal life or create or know what's really going on at all, because you don't have the basics of what this world and you are. But if we were educated that way, and we knew it, like if we were in a different world that doesn't have the kind of we're educated different to that. We don't think that way. But we don't think that way at all. And what I'm saying is that the beginning of the video was, we worship the gods, right? The God is the world around us, the technology, okay? Because whatever God you do believe in, you would have to say, if you look at this world, it has to be a technological God because we are surrounded by technology. So this is an interesting thing for people to think about if they are religious. Like, what God do you worship in this real world? Do you think that that God that you worship is a technological God? You know, that's something to think about. Because if we are spiritual beings, only in a physical body temporarily, or meant to be temporarily, although I think most of us have been stuck here for so long, if that's the case, and we can't get out because we buy into the physical, okay? Now, if we are spiritual beings, just in a physical body, and our thought creates reality, and we're all connected, then this world is ruled by technology. So is your God a technological God? What I'm saying is, with that information, I'm asking you, not for me to tell you, for you to think about that. We're spiritual beings in a physical body. Our thought creates reality and we're all connected. But we worship a technological God. We must, because our world is ruled by technology. But we are spiritual beings in a physical body. Our thought creates reality and we're all connected. You see what I'm asking you to think about that? Because if we were created by a God and we're spiritual beings and our thought creates reality and we're all connected, would that God be a technological God? Would that God put us into a technological world? Would we be using technology to contact the God? Should we, would we need it? Are we worshipping, or is our God totally different to us? Why would we be totally different to our God? These are all questions, is what I'm saying. They're contradictions, I think. That's all I'm saying. So I'm confused and I want to know the truth, you see. But yeah. So we worship the gods, but we create the reality for the God. And the God uses technology. Does the God use the technology? Does he take our thoughts with the technology to then create the reality? Is that necessary? These are questions. That's all I'm saying. They're questions, you know, and they're for you to ask and to think what you think about it. Now, you know, we live in as I've said before, we live in a duality world, and even that is a duality if you think about it. I'm just using that word. By duality, I mean they're kind of contradictions and opposites, aren't they? This is just coming to me as I'm making this video. Because if we're spiritual beings in a physical body, but that's just a bit like someone said on the internet or something, that's saying we are spiritual beings having a physical experience, whereas most people, including myself, would have said, oh no, we are physical beings having a spiritual experience. well, actually, as I said in the past, I wouldn't have even said that. So, you know, so you can see that I'm not not one of your airy-fairy type of people at all. I look for the facts and even logic and common sense, you know, on what I am saying. But there again, if I'm just making a video, I can't prove it. Like I say, if I see that my thoughts at times and other people's even materialize in a way where I would say, hey, that shouldn't have really been possible because I didn't actually physically talk to that person. So it must have been like some sort of mind transfer. These are the questions I'm posing to you. Is this mind transfer what we would have naturally done? Because I believe that naturally we should have been able to do this, but I'm not saying that we can do it. I'm not saying that we're doing it on our own now, because there's so much technology around. It's quite possible that technology intercepts the thoughts and then creates the reality. That is a possibility that just come to me, but I'm saying that that's not, if the basics of human beings are that they're spiritual beings and their thought creates reality and they're all connected, I'm saying that that is a separate thing. And why is it? Why does it exist? And why has our natural ability went down and perhaps been lost even? I don't know. This is what I'm saying. Now, I'll just try and put some more things to you because I'm hoping that they make sense as a whole. To me, they do, even though I'm an ignorant person with no education. But they also, you know, recently I've heard that scientists talk about junk DNA. They call it junk DNA, and they say that human beings are some astronomical amount of junk DNA, like 95 or 98% junk DNA. That means DNA that's there that is not used and not activated. But why is it there? I say that if it was there originally and it's still there, but it's now not of any use, appears to not be of any use, maybe once it was meant to be of use. And why is it now not used and useless? And what would that be? That means we're operating on only 2 to 3% of our DNA. And we think we're quite good. The rest, we use technology. So I'm saying that maybe that DNA is not operating, but it was meant to operate. Because if it's there, why would it be there? And if it was meant to operate and there's 95 or 98% of it, that means that we are operating at a very low level to what we're meant to be, and that we are being deprived of, you say heaven only knows what abilities. You know, because if we're spiritual beings and our thought creates reality, we're all connected, but also our DNA is largely useless to us, not activated. What would that activation mean? Like, what would it give us? What are we not got? And now we use technology for everything, you know. I'm just saying that, you know, we're substituting, you know, I'm not trying to say anything too obvious, but at the same time, I'm speculating and saying, hey, maybe, you know, the technology, you know, we're substituting that for the natural things, you know, even the communication, stuff like that. Now, see, we think that we need to communicate all over the world. Now, there again, originally, this is just speculation, okay? It really is just speculation. And I don't know, but maybe originally we were in smaller communities. We didn't have to communicate with everyone on the planet. We were in our small groups, and we didn't need to make contact with another group necessarily. Now, I know that humans tend to think that it's good for us to reach out and to go as far as we can. But what I am trying to say is, this is what I think, is that originally it wouldn't have mattered if I, as a spiritual being, stayed just in a 10-mile radius or something. In other words, never even went outside of a few suburbs, much less go overseas or into space or any of that sort of stuff. It wouldn't have been necessary because, one, I would have been able to communicate mentally with every other person anyway, without actually coming into physical contact with them, which may actually have solved more problems instead of created the problems that it now does, where we get into fights over territory and stuff. But anyway, that's speculation too. I'm not going to go there because, to be honest, I don't know fully what I'm talking about on that. But if we were spiritual beings and our thought creates reality and we're all connected, but also so much of our DNA is dormant, useless, not activated. I say not activated. In other words, it was there for a purpose because it was put there. And to think that we're not, it's a bit like we only use a small amount of our mind. It's the same thing. We don't have connection with our subconscious mind, which is bigger, I think, than the other, and still controls our thinking and creates the reality, because our thinking creates reality. You know, I think all this, I'm not putting it across right, but look, if all that DNA was activated, or even more of it, who knows what that is meant to mean? What I'm trying to say is maybe, you know, that would give us abilities to where we could do a lot more things than what we do. Maybe we don't need the technology at all. Because what I'm trying to say is that if that technology meant that you could, and I'm stretching it, you'll have to use your imagination. What if that meant that you could go, like, go to another realm or to another place or go anywhere you wanted, just with the power of your mind, with the activation of dormant DNA? Because these things, because I'm saying that if we were created as spiritual beings and our thought creates reality, to me that tells me that we already have some abilities that we don't know we have and that we're not using. So maybe there's even more. So maybe we now use technology to get round. And if we want to go past this earth, we would have to use a spaceship, this type of thing. I'm saying that maybe if all our DNA was activated, we might be able to do these things just with the power of our mind, without technology. It's just a thought. It's just a thought. And that's only based, like I said, I'm just putting these things there. You know, it's a bit like if you become crippled, then you need, you know, a walking stick or a wheelchair or something. You need something technical or something mechanical to get you round. But, you know, you shouldn't have to, you know, but that's the world we live in. And that covers everything. And like I say, the title of the video is just something to think about. We worship the god or the gods, but they don't worship us. But is it not possible As I've said before, we live in a reverse world. Think about that. Human beings, spiritual beings, in a physical body. Thought creates. Sorry about that. That's the physical world around that is negative sometimes, because, you know, I'm just saying, if I can possibly get it out, that maybe, you know, we need to, we've become very limited, very limited. I've always said in some of the other videos, even though not many people, I don't get anyone to watch them, but I have said that this is just my belief, that we do have gods that rule, and that we worship. Some do, some don't. We worship directly, indirectly. There again, I can't go into details. You'd have to figure that out for yourself. We have the religions, and some people might, not that I know any of these people, but I'm sure that people that are more in the know, more at the top, probably worship more directly, because some people do have more knowledge than others. I've been ignorant all my life. We're deprived knowledge. We don't tend, but that also depends on what you think is correct knowledge. Like if you like me in the past, where you live very much in the physical world and you believe only what's in front of you, and you don't even know what's going on really on the other side of the world, shall we say, and that was certainly me. You don't tend to think in terms that, oh, there are gods, and that there's, entities that, control things, or that operate, even though you see the internet all over the globe, and you don't see that either, but it's there. You don't know how it works. To me, all these things are operated by something or someone. They have to be, I would think. I don't know how this works in front of me, but I'm saying that it's a bit of a deception. I personally, I'm very confused about the world and about these opposite things, this duality, where you have got where you've got this kind of spiritual realm or human type thing, and then you've got the technology, and then you've got gods, and then you've got humans, and the humans worship the gods, but the gods perhaps, they direct the humans, they influence and control the humans, us, and whether you want to say that's just the world we live in, or whether you want to say there is a God behind it. But all I'm saying is that this world is ruled by technology. And as I said before, I think originally, because there was probably intervention, and I think, like missing link intervention at some point anyway with most humans, where if you do believe there is a God entity, right, then that God is technological, and we merged at some point. By that I mean bred or whatever. And so maybe at that point that might have deactivated some of the DNA, because if you merge different things together, you're not going to keep your original state, are you? So if I'm a spiritual being and my thought creates reality and I'm all connected, if I merge with something that's a different type of being, that's technological and has totally different, I don't know, because there again, I've never met this sort of thing, but has a totally different chemistry, almost, you could say, wouldn't even have chemistry, or maybe, I cannot speak on it, but I know that it would be very different to the human. And you don't, say I'm right or wrong, but I don't think that it's wise for an elephant to breed with a monkey or a bird or this or that. And that, it may work out to where there's survival, but I would think that one or both beings would be compromised. You see what I'm saying? So I'm just saying that maybe originally if we had more DNA and it was activated and meant to be working or meant to be developed or whatever, that then if you breed with something different, whether it be technologically breeding, whether it's in a laboratory or whether it's natural, I can't say on all that. I don't understand these things. But whichever way you look at it, I think that this is just what I think. I would think that there would be a compromise. I don't think you would have where you would get the two becoming both better. In fact, you could have it to where, where the opposite. And that it's just something to think about if there was intervention with the gods, the beings, whatever. This video is probably not making sense if you haven't studied a few little things, because I know I've had to look at that just very recently. Otherwise, it doesn't make a lot of sense. But and really, I wanted to make this video, and the videos that I make, I really want to make them just for someone like myself, where I didn't know a single thing, and now I'm starting to think that because I've seen a few things, that there is more, and that we don't have the right information or knowledge, and that we should at least consider another way of looking at things. And so I wanted to make it very simple to where someone like myself could understand what I'm now saying to you. But the trouble is that it's very hard if you haven't had first-hand experience, or if you don't take the whole world or the whole picture into consideration, which I've never done, but I've had to now, because if you don't do that and you don't study a little, or at least have some basics of our history or alternate histories and all this, you do actually have to look for the pieces. And I've never wanted to do that, but I have done it just recently, and that's why I'm saying all this stuff. But it is hard if you don't. I would say that we all should be doing that, and also just perhaps at a simple level, because I will make another video about robot type thing, okay? Robots and android type thing, beings, that sort of thing, soon. Because that's something that also I would have been innocent about. And what I'm trying to say now is that if we are spiritual beings, if we are spiritual beings in a physical body, if you think that you have any spirit at all, and even by that, even if you are a cold person, because I don't consider myself to be the most wonderful, loving person, I'm going to say that honestly, but if you even consider that you have any emotion at all, even if it's negative, because I believe that we're, as I say, pushed down, everything is frequency and vibration, and we're pushed down to a low frequency, okay? But even if you have negative emotion, you are still a human being. Even if you hate the world, you are still a human being. It's just that you've been, like us all, pushed down to where we can only think negative, because we're not experiencing or not allowed to experience by the world around us anything positive. But you're still a human being. So, and to me, if you're a human being, then you are a spiritual being. And if you want to go along any other line in this world, like I say, if you think that, you worship the intellect and you worship, the information, we're information addicts. Even I've had to use information to come to my spiritual conclusion. But that shouldn't have been. I say that that's because we have, down through the thousands and thousands of years, no doubt, but also, as I said before, it's not us. It's because we are not able to access our DNA or activate any of it. It's there, but none of us have access to it. It's like, that you should be able to do more, but we can't. And this is frustrating and tragic, but most of us don't know it. I think if more of us at least knew it, we could then perhaps, because we are connected and our thought creates reality, I think I think personally that we would be able to get something going, but this is not happening because, like I say, we're operating in a totally, I was about to say a totally alien world, but by that I mean an alien world means that it is totally the opposite to what we are. When I say alien, and you can take that any way you want, okay? You can take it any way you want. That depends on who's listening to the video. But by alien, I mean something totally opposed to what I am as, say, a human, a very emotional kind of feelings, yeah, spiritual human. I think all humans are spiritual, but you don't have to be religious to be spiritual. You don't have to believe. You look, it doesn't matter if you only believe in your physical body and you don't think, you know, and you actually dislike your human body because it fails you. This is also because of the DNA, I think. I think the reason we're all sick, you know, it doesn't matter what age you are. You know, this is what I think, and I've thought this for a little while now. This is all because we are compromised in every way. But no matter what sort of human you are, I don't care even if you're a serial killer, you're still human. You probably are still human. It's just that you've been brought down to such a low, even lower than the rest of us, to where you hate and you're angry and you don't believe in human. You don't believe you're even human, for that matter. You've lost. You've only got the total negative emotions. You've got none at all that's positive. Most of us still have a few little positive things. We might not be on. We're not on top of the world, and we're not at a high vibration. No, none of us are. But some of us still can see a few good things, and we try, you know, and we have some loving and some compassion, all that sort of stuff. You know what I'm saying. But no matter, unless you're a totally technological being, you know, then you still have those emotions. It's just that you've been brought right down, and you will do bad things, and you will be more destructive than even you will be more destructive than the most than the worst technology, because you will be directed by that negative thing. And then I think that because we live in such a world that is not conducive to us, most of us can't get that anything activated or get back to a balance, because I think that that's right. There's extreme love on one side, shall we say, extreme hate on the other. And if you're at the extreme hate, it's going to be impossible to get to extreme love. I think most humans have probably never even been anywhere near extreme love. I think then you'd be looking at your very enlightened few that have been down through the centuries. And even there, I don't know fully how enlightened they were or what the level is. But I think that we're at least supposed to be coming a bit towards the center, a bit of a balance, shall we say, you know. But if we're right at one end and we get pushed that way by the world, we're never going to raise the vibration. So therefore, we're going to be open to even more negativity. The technological mind parasites of the world, the technology will come in and give you negative thoughts, and then you will be controlled by those negative thoughts, the negative mind parasites, and they will just keep coming and it's very hard. I know myself, if you get a negative thought, to not entertain it, or to say, oh, that's not my thought, that's not what I really should be thinking. I shouldn't really be feeling that way. I shouldn't be angry about this or that, or especially if it's against another human being, because that really is defeating the whole purpose of what human beings are. Because there's the basics of it is that what I've learned is that we're spiritual beings in a physical body. Our thought creates reality, and we're all connected. But this is all a natural thing. This is a natural thing. This was how we were originally, I think. And I think that also that we would have had many more abilities, because we would have had access to, even at the bodily level, because even the body, if there's all that DNA that's not used, from what I've just learned, then that means that even the body should have had a lot more abilities and be perhaps a lot better than what we know it to be now. This is an assumption, but if you look at those little facts that have come to me recently, it makes a bit of sense, doesn't it? Don't you think? Just things to think about anyway. I do hope um, that's what we do need to do, is at least think about things, not just take everything, not just, because like I say, to be human, contrary to what we think now, excuse me, is probably a lot more special than what we actually realised. And even I know this, but I don't always feel it, because it is a negative realm we live in, and it's very hard to feel good about being human when everything around us fails, when our body fails, when it appears that the technology knows more than what we do, and we get confused. It's confusing. I think this whole world is just one mass confusion. It's chaos that way. And to actually know the truth, or to even find a way out of it, is very hard. But, and I think that a few years ago, we would have seen this more than what we do now, because I think even though we appear to have more knowledge, but we're not getting all the sources together. We're still losing sight of what we are, if we take it to a basic level, whereas I think even years ago, people were a little bit more aware of this basic type of thing. I think most people would have seen themselves as a lot more spiritual in the past. But I think as the years have went by, we've got more and more away from it. And that doesn't mean that we don't still worship gods. We do. But like I say, in light of what I said about humans, and then technology and a God, you'll have to say, what should we really be doing, and what is the real situation? And, where do we fit into this? What has really happened here? You'll have to look into that. I'm closing off now anyway, because my videos, unfortunately, I apologise that they're long but confusing, because probably it's mainly people that already know some of this stuff that are actually going to get it, and I really wanted it to be more for someone like myself that didn't know anything not that long ago. But I realise now that it's very hard to make something simple if you haven't experienced at least a bit of it. That's the problem, because even though the truth might be simple in its form, if it's something that you've never seen, never heard of before, never experienced, and it's totally out of what you call your reality, it doesn't matter how simple, or even if it's a truth, it's still going to be incomprehensible. I know it would have been incomprehensible to me not that long ago. And it's still incomprehensible in the sense that I might believe it to be true, but to actually, like to know that we should be doing better, and that maybe our DNA is there, and that when we've got DNA that we should be using but can't use, what can you say about that? Like, I don't have an answer for that myself. I really don't. But to be using something else as a substitute for that, I wonder, because I think that we use technology to substitute for our lackings. But I'm saying that, why are we lacking? Why have we become lack if we should have more? I wonder, because is that how it's meant to be? There's this duality world, as I say. There's the technology, there's the technological God, maybe, whichever way you look at it. If you're using technology all the time, whether it's a true being or whether it's even just the gadget you're using, you are worshipping and using and becoming dependent on the God. And humans are very notorious for that. Our history shows that we like to have gods. We do not feel safe in ourselves because we do not think that we have any abilities to do things. Because we create, but we don't know we create. So we think we are, well, figure it out yourself. We think we are what we think we are, but is it what we are? You know, this is it. We're spiritual beings in a physical body. Our thought creates reality, and we're all connected. So we're operating at odds with ourselves in a funny kind of way. But then again, we can't do any better because the world, we have created a negative world now. Indirectly, we have created a negative world. We haven't done it directly because most of us wouldn't willfully want to live in this world as it is. But indirectly, it has been created by us. Why and for what purpose? That's for us to think about, I guess. And why would we do it? And do we have full control of our mind? Do we actually know what we really are doing? Yeah. And the answer to that has to be, well, of course, if we don't know we're even creating in the first place, of course we don't. And then if we're at a negative vibration, we're creating negatively, consciously and subconsciously, and we don't know it. And then if the whole universe is frequency, vibration, and energy, these are just very basics. And this is all I know, and yet I'm saying this. Then, think about that. Figure it out yourself. We're creating negative. Who for, what, and why? Is it meant to be like this? Is the technology trying to help us, hinder us, or what? These are all questions. That's all I'm saying. You just have to say, what are you? What is the world? Where are we going? What are we doing? What is going on? Is it chaos or is it going towards order? And if order, what sort of order? Okay, I'm exhausted. So, it's no fun being a spiritual human being, is it? No, not really. Well, I hope that we don't think that. That's the whole problem, is that we do think that. I know I think it too. Because if we were operating, if those things are true, we are operating at the worst that we can be. Whereas if we were operating at the best, we wouldn't think that way and we wouldn't feel that way. And even our bodies would feel good. But this is not the reality. So it's very easy for us to think that we will look for alternatives. But, whether that is going to be for our benefit or for our, these are things to think about. That's all I'm saying, because it's not, it's very much now that way, much more than what it's ever been, I think. I think the world has never been more negative, even though I can see some spiritual human beings that try to make it better and that are what I would call more spiritual than myself and doing good. But they're up against, the illusion of this world, because there's really not going to be too much input if we're not all working where we know what we're really doing as a whole. It's still going to be, it's just going to be banging our heads against a wall in a funny kind of way. And but I will say this, the only real simple solution is for everyone to try to be more positive, more less angry, less that way, not because you feel that way, but because the only way that you can get better yourself is to do that, because your body, and I know myself, my own body depends on it, because otherwise the negativity will hurt you as much as someone else. So we really are in a trick situation, a real trap, I think. This is how I see it when I look around, even just at human interactions at a very personal level. It's all destructive and negative, to both, even if you think you're winning, if you think if you had a fight with someone, you think you won that fight, you haven't won. You've punched yourself just as much as you've punched the other person. The same, anytime you have a conflict, you think you might win the argument, whatever, you haven't. The negative energy, it can't work for us that way. That's what I now realise after a lifetime of it. So I'm speaking from experience. There are a lifetime of it, and I just hope it's not too late for the whole world, because we are in a lot more dangerous times than what we have in the past, I think, because in the past we didn't have quite so much around us, and even then we were still, obviously we've always been in the dark for quite a while. I don't know, I can't go back in time to where I could say why it happened that way, but I'm guessing that sometimes you only have to make a mistake, a bit like, as I've said before, the Garden of Eden scenario, where they take the apple and then they go down a totally different path, and they start, yes, compromising themselves, breeding wrong, treating the world wrong, using artificial things maybe that might not serve them as well as something else. I don't know. I'm just saying that these are all things to consider, because the world has been changing all the time. We see it as evolution, and I've said before, I don't personally see it as evolution, even though, I'm a part of it as much as everyone else, but I do think that we've lost more than we've gained. Every year that goes by, I think we lose more than what we gain, but other people see it as progress, but that's just an opinion there again. But these are just things to think about, okay, and